Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second Hawkeye Roundtable Podcast here. I've got Jackson Miller and Chris Meglio of the Daily Iowan here joining me today. And fellas, it should be a fun half hour of ball talk. We've got a lot of stuff going on, but I feel like we have to start with the transfer portal again. Iowa's transfer portal class is over. I can't remember the exact number of guys that have committed, but a really good job, I think, by Iowa. So if you guys could just kind of give me a grade, how you think Iowa performed this cycle.
Yeah, I think, for me, I'd give them like a B plus to an A minus. I think they filled almost every spot that they need. The only knock I have is they didn't get a punter, and I don't know if there's one on the roster right now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But I really like, how these guys, how they filled, obviously the holes that opened up. Like with Cohen Entringer leaving, they got a couple safeties there. With Brian Allen leaving, they got a couple defensive linemen who are really good. Tony Diaz was a huge get. Obviously one of the most sought after FCS receivers. So really cool to see Iowa get him. Hopefully they can use him well in the coming seasons.
Yeah, I'll say a B as well. I thought it was a fair mix of offense and defense. The fact they didn't get a punter is interesting. I mean, but Iowa's like with Torrey Taylor and how Reese Dakin's success will gone with us. I think it won't be too hard to find a punter. I'm assuming it's going to be Australian again, but I thought it did good. 2 wide receivers, 3 safeties. The running back was huge. I'm blanking on his name, but I have it pulled up right here. LJ Phillips, he's huge, and to add that diverse running back room that we already have will be huge. So I thought it was good on both sides of the ball. That's really what I was looking at is offense and defense, but I thought it was fair, and it'll be exciting because hopefully to see a lot of these guys play next year. I know we had a couple guys who transferred to us last year, like Shaheed Barrows, for example. Didn't really see him too much, so we hope that some of these guys that we're talking about so highly we can see on the field.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to have to give them a B plus. I like everybody that they brought in, but it's a lot of guys from the FCS that are talented, but we really need to see what they can do at the Big Ten level. So I think that's going to be the biggest question with this group. But if there's a top get out of this group, it has to be Tony Diaz, right? The wide receiver from UT Rio Grande Valley. He had 67 catches for 881 yards and 11 touchdowns last season. So just a dominant performance from him. And keep in mind, that was the first season of UT Rio Grande Valley football. So that's a guy that was probably not highly recruited out of high school, and he really made a name for himself in 1 year. So cannot wait to see what he does alongside Reese Vanderzee and company.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think he was a 0-star recruit. Like he had no offers except for that one, and like a couple other small schools. So, really, really awesome to get him, and that's a really good story as well. Being able to, come in with low expectations and then make a name for yourself, and then get to the Big Ten, within a couple of years. So, huge gift for Iowa. And I think you mentioned that you get all these guys from lower levels, and yeah, you wonder if they can adjust, but you also would rather, like, I feel like I'd rather get guys from this level that are coming up to the Big Ten rather than having like a throwaway from the SEC. Because these guys that come to the SEC, they're 5-star, 4-star recruits, and then things don't work out where they're at, and they're just kind of like another guy. These guys obviously have something to prove. So I feel like getting FCS talent and division or like lower level talent, in terms of divisions is a really good thing for Iowa. And most of these guys have multiple years of eligibility as well. So, some of them might have to sit, some of them might, take a while to get fully developed. So, it'll definitely be interesting to see how these guys, get used throughout the year and in the coming years as well.
I thought you made the good point of, and you took my point of just the multiple guys having that extra eligibility. I mean, that think that's huge, and I think it'll be interesting to see, specifically offensively, since we're talking about Tony Diaz and in my case LJ Phillips, just to see them how they're throwing into this new offense, especially now Mark Gronowski's going to be gone. Jeremy Eklinski gets the keys now, so how is that going to look too? With you got Reese Vanderzee, DJ Vanami, all of a sudden came on the scene as one of the best young tight ends in the country. So how is Tony Diaz going to mix in with those guys? And then also LJ Phillips, obviously how dominant he was in the FCS. How is he going to mix in with Kamari Bolden now? How is that going to work? And as Xavier Williams, how are they going to make those three work? Because those three are the guys. They can all produce. And you got so many receivers, so many running backs that could actually do damage on the field. So how are they going to split up the ball? Because we kind of had a hint of what it was this year. Kamari Bolden was the guy running back. Receiving, DJ Vanami came late. Reese Vanderzee was a little inconsistent. He has issues, but also I believe the injuries too. So it'll be interesting to see. It's as every year of Iowa football, it's always a question mark on offense.
Yeah, and another thing on Diaz too is he averaged 13.1 yards after the catch. When was the last time we've seen an Iowa receiver really make plays after the catch? It seems to me they just catch the ball and fall down. Like
a lot of guys
you
don't
gotta
even
have
catch
that.
the
Yeah. Right, too. They drop it.
Guys didn't even catch
they don't
the
even
ball
get
this
to
year.
that point.
Yeah,
but
here's it.
Just having that. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say because I remember last year we talked about similar but different. How Sam Phillips last year his average yards per catch was like 15 per yard, but you look at this year and he did kind of have something similar, but we just didn't see him get too many opportunities because we just don't throw the football that much. So if we're gonna make that happen with Tony Diaz and him be a weapon for us, we gotta be willing to throw the ball a little more. I think in my case, I mean, running game is so dominant though; it's hard to actually go to receiving when your run game is unstoppable almost.
Yeah, and I think there was a game last year where Diaz had like 17 receptions in one game. Like they were force feeding him the ball a lot. So I think like don't be surprised if his production does go down this year like by quite a bit. Like if he's around like the maybe 500-yard mark, just because of not only like you said with the running game, you've got four guys, with Moulton, Williams, LJ Phillips, and Nathan McNeil. Like that can be a stable that is they've all got their own skill set. So the running game will be huge, like you said, and then also just the amount of talent you now have at receiver, like proven talent as well. With Reese Vanderzee, obviously, if he's can remain healthy, you've got Dayton Howard out there with good size, like you said, Vanami. Like it's going to be a very interesting season, I think, in terms of who gets the ball and how often they get it.
Well, if he's going to be a 500-yard receiver, then Iowa's going to have a heck of a football team because they didn't have a receiver that eclipsed 300 yards this year. So if that's going to be our benchmark next year, then there could be some good things on the horizon for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I think Hecklinski's not afraid to let it rip either. He based on what we've heard, from practices and spring practice, fall camp, like, he's fearless. And even watching like his high school tape, he'll just let that thing go downfield and let his guys go and get it. And he's got the talent to do it now. You got RVZ and Dayton Howard can go up and get it, and so can Diaz as well. All three of those guys have great contested catch abilities. So I'd be excited to see if they let Hecklinski kind of just rip it, however he wants.
But that's the question mark I'm thinking about now, because obviously Logan Jones, Jennings Dunker, they're gone. They're going to the league. Cade Pieper is coming back. We got Bo Stevens. Is he's still around?
Bo Stevens is leaving.
So he's leaving too. Okay, so big shape up on the O-line. Yeah, we don't know what exactly that's going to look like. So are they going to, with all those guys gone, and those were the three, kind of, you talk about the staples of our O-line, the Joe Moore Award winner. Those three were the guys. So are we going to lean more towards throwing this year? Maybe they'll let it rip a little more with these guys gone, because who knows if the run game will be as efficient as last year, because a big part of that was the guys blocking up front. So if it is, you got Tony Diaz, you got Reese Vanderzee, you got DJ Vanami out there. Are we going to give those guys the ball a little more than we saw last year?
Yeah, and I think, the thing is with the offensive line, I think they'll still be good. They've got guys that had experience, and I think I saw that they're going to move Pieper to center probably. I think it's just because of the experience he has just on the offensive line. So you've got, Myslinski is probably going to slide to guard. You got Cannon Leonard at tackle, who was competing with Lauk at the beginning of the season for that starting spot. And they've got Leighton Jones as well. Like he's had some significant snaps this year. So these guys have experience, and I think it's just a matter of how well they can play together. So it might take a week or two to kind of get that going. But I think they'll still be fine. And I think the run game, I think they'll run it enough to where it can still be pretty dominant.
Yeah, a lot of cool things for the football side. One more football topic I do have is that Iowa has a new special teams coordinator. Yesterday, it was announced that Chris Polizzi would be the new coordinator replacing LeVar Woods. So he was a defensive analyst for Iowa this past year. He's got coordinator experience at Tulsa and UT Martin, and has been a coach for over 20 seasons. So a lot of experience there. And to me, the good thing is he knows the roster. He knows the system a little bit now. And he was also coached by Seth Wallace in college. So a lot of familiarity there, which I think will pay dividends for Iowa.
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he a grad assistant at Iowa?
He was,
I believe so, yeah.
For 3 seasons. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of it too. You had to know that it's typical. In-house hires are just kind of what we do across all sports, minus men's basketball this past season. But you had to figure it was going to be someone in-house. I mean, it's a good system too, with the way they not just develop players but coaches too.
Well, especially with like just in-house with hires of like assistants. Like you don't always see it with head coaches, but these guys, they elevate up the ranks quite a bit, and they want to stay there. So that's a really good hire, I think, in my opinion. And like you said, Brad, he knows the roster well, knows what they want to do, what their goals are as a unit. So, and obviously working with LeVar Woods the past however many years, that helps as well. So I think the special teams will be all right.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning that his last defense at Tulsa that he coordinated gave up 42 points per game. So hopefully that's not foreshadowing what's to come at Iowa, but I think Iowa did a good job with this hire. No, yeah, good thing. Geez, yeah, Phil Parker can focus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to the mat. I'm not a big wrestling guy, as I've admitted a lot on these shows, but tonight's the big Iowa-Penn State duel. And before we kind of talk about Iowa's chances in that, we have to start out with Masoma Endine. One of Iowa's starting wrestlers was removed from the roster earlier this week. Pretty wild turn of events. Jackson, you've got a lot to say on this. Let's hear it.
Yeah. They announced on Tuesday, like you said, that he's removed from the roster. There's a lot of, he's a top 5 wrestler. You don't just see those guys get booted off the roster for no reason. There was a lot of speculation going on, and there still is. And, Tom Brands didn't, give any detail on the situation at all. He didn't want to talk about it, and I don't envision he will, which, it's fine. You don't have to. But there was, an update from Wrestling Insider Updates on Instagram. I believe they have a big following. So, this, I don't know how true this is, but I'll just read kind of what they said. So he was nursing, and Dean was nursing a neck injury. That's why he hadn't wrestled since the Iowa State duel. So this just says, doctors advise Dean to stay off the mat due to a neck injury, which could have led to both permanent damage and other lifelong complications if not taken care of correctly. So because of all this, he obviously wasn't able to wrestle, but he would still show up to practice, which eventually drove the Brands brothers nuts. According to a close friend of Endine, during practice, Tom Brands would say things like, "Harvey, be ready, my 97 is quitting on me," which he's talking to Harvey Ludington, who's probably going to be his replacement. And just because he wasn't able to compete. And then both the Brands brothers, along with Iowa's finance guy, decided they didn't want to pay him his NIL money while he was injured, which is ridiculous because it's usually a contract type situation. And ultimately, they tried to force Endine back from his injury to try to get back for this duel specifically. And Terry Brands allegedly one time said, "Get a cortisone shot and compete or you're done." And first of all, that's ridiculous to say to anybody on your team. And 2, from what I've heard, Endine doesn't usually take those type of, he doesn't even take Tylenol or painkillers usually. He just stays away from it, likes to let things heal naturally. And so after all that happened, Tom demanded that Endine meet with him in person with their money guy and whatever, I think, which at the time was when his wife went into labor when they had their first child earlier this week or last week, I think. And apparently they were upset that he missed the meeting. That was the reason he missed the meeting, and they were upset that he missed it. And so then they decided to release him from the roster to save money. And allegedly, a lot of the current Iowa wrestlers are very unhappy with the situation, which makes sense. Now, I don't know how much truth is to that, but that's the most detailed story that we have with the whole situation. And I will say, most of the wrestlers have shown like their support for Andine. Like Nasir Bailey and Jordan Williams both posted on their Instagram story like the day it was announced, like just saying like how much they'll miss him, how much they love him, and all that stuff. So it's really interesting to me how this whole situation went down. Because if this is true, you might have to have a hard look at this program in the offseason and think about moving on from the Brands, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Like just last year, Gabe Arnold was kicked off the roster, and we still don't really know exactly why. I don't think we'll ever really know the full story here, because they always say there's three sides to a story. There's your side, there's my side, and there's the truth. So we don't know what the truth is. We've only heard one side so far. So based on what this is saying, they're saying that, and Dean didn't really have any choice here. And they're saying that the Brands just basically got really upset that he was at practice and not competing, and, didn't want to force his way back from a very serious injury. And I just think like you cannot treat your athletes like that in the first place, but especially now in this era where these guys are making money, they're grown men, and Dean is 23 years old. Like he can manage himself. Like he doesn't need to be barked at like he's a high schooler. This isn't the early 2000s, late 1990s anymore when the Brands were, started coaching where they can kind of just get on whoever with no consequences. And I think like from what I've heard, and Dean is going to try to pursue like a medical red shirt and try to get a 7th year and wrestle for another team next year. And, I'm honestly hoping he does go to like another Big Ten school and comes back to Iowa City and just destroys whoever they've got at 97 just to kind of, put a point out there. Because it's just absolutely ridiculous from, not only as someone who covers a team, but just as a human being. Like, if this is true, it's just you've got to move on from them. Now, like, I'm not one to say, question the character of the Brands, because I do think that they're good people, normally. So I think sometimes they just get into like a power struggle almost with some of these situations. And a really interesting development over the last 20 hours or so. So Leister Bowling, he's a current wrestler on the team. He made an Instagram post with just like some pictures of him on the mat, and he's said in the caption, "Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. There is not another program in this world that has the coaches that we do. The time and energy they put into us is unmatched. The real ones will always keep it real." And then Alex Marinelli also posted on Instagram and Twitter. He's a former wrestler and at Iowa, and he posted like a picture of him and Tom and Terry, and he said, "To all the lovers and haters, loyalty, culture, brotherhood, that's the Iowa wrestling I know. Tom Brands and co. are the real MVPs, the standard, the backbone, and what's always been best for this program. Forever loyal, forever a Hawkeye." So those comments from those guys make me feel like there could be another side angle to this story where, maybe this was something where, maybe Andine was at fault, or maybe he, screwed something up, or whatever's going on. Because it seems like, some guys are supporting the Brands, some guys are supporting Andine, and it's like, I mean, Tom said, he wishes him the best going forward, but, I don't know if we'll ever really know the full story here, just because of the way that the Brands treat these situations. They like to, they don't like to talk about these things, which is fine. You just are going to deal with these rumors. If this is the only story that comes out, then it could lead to the end of their coaching careers, because that is ridiculous. And so I think unless they put out a statement or say something, whether it's tonight, after the duel or whenever, it could get really, really ugly moving forward.
I want to chime in. You made a great point, and I was going to bring up during my time in Philly in March covering nationals, I remember after Stephen Buchanan won his championship and him saying how much he disliked wrestling. He didn't like wrestling. He only did it because he was good at it. Then he came to Iowa, found that love, and he credited Tom and Terry a bunch for that. And that's why when you were reading all that, I was thinking about how like you said, there's one side, there's the other side, and then there's the truth, and how Adine there could be a part of the story. Whoever told the story to those people that put out that story that you were just reading, there could be a part of that was twisted. Because right now it seems like it was all on the brands, but is it all on the brands? Was Adine, could he be trying to take advantage of a situation? You don't know. Like, shout out to him and his wife, the beautiful baby that they had. Credit to them, and hopefully that's all healthy. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely two sides to a story, and you don't ever want to see, you know, one of the best wrestlers in his class in the country be shipped off like that. I think that's why everyone's upset. It's just the fact that someone of this magnitude, he was number 5 in the
Number 4.
197, number 4,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he's gone. Like that's a big question mark rather than someone who'd be at rank. But I remember a couple days ago, this was the last Iowa game that Brad, me and you covered at Carver. So this was Sunday or Monday, and you were next to me, but I'm not going to name the Iowa reporter, but we were talking to somebody and we were talking about wrestling, and basically the topic of the conversation was how wrestlers in the 90s and 2000s would be pushed to their limit by their coaches and their trainers, just to stay in shape or whatever, and they had consequences for that, physical consequences, sometimes even death. And where I'm going with that is sometimes those old school coaches could really push the boundaries on some of these wrestlers, whether the wrestlers are with it or not. In this case, Adeem seemed like he was not with that. But Tom and Terry, that are old school coaches, as Jackson, you very well know, maybe that played a part in it too, where that's just the old school principles coming in and trying to push someone to their absolute boundaries for the success of the team. Maybe for Adeem, it was just too much. Maybe those boundaries were just stretched a little too far, and he pushed back, and the sides collided. So until we, like you said, until we get the true story, we'll never really know.
Yeah, and I think, initial reporting said that there was just an NIL disagreement, which obviously was part of that story that came out, the full thing. So, there could be a situation, like you said, where Dean's just trying to take advantage of a situation. If you remember, I think it was last year, he was going to go to Wisconsin and kind of just packed up and left in, middle of the night, just kind of out of nowhere, decided he didn't want to be there. So there's always that possibility. I don't think he's the type of guy to do that, just in, talking to him and everything. And I will say, actually, the day that they announced this going on, Ross Bartachek with IA Wrestle, he reached out to Indine, and initially he said he didn't have any comment, but then later he posted on Twitter his reply. He said, "There are almost always two sides to every story, and I would recommend not putting the cart before the horse or jumping to conclusions." So there is that possibility where maybe guys are jumping to conclusions and making up these stories, or maybe part of it's true and part of it's not. So yeah, it's just a very messy situation. It's the worst time for it to happen when you're going up against the number 1 team in the country tonight. And it's just a terrible distraction to have for this team going into this duel.
I agree. Yeah. Who was the source that put out that story? That
they didn't say where
thing.
Yeah, so it was let me see. It was Wrestling Insider Updates was the Instagram account. They didn't say where exactly, so they have 52,000 followers on Instagram. So I would assume they're pretty reputable. They didn't necessarily say, they said a close friend of Indine is who told them what Tom said, in the practice about telling Harvey to be ready because Basoma's quitting on him. So I don't know if that was a teammate, if it's someone that, just his friend outside the program. I don't know where they didn't say where they obviously got that from because, they get anonymity. It's just how it works. So yeah, I don't know where they heard that from, but it's a very detailed story. So I'm leaning towards it's true, but I'm praying it's not, because that is a very messy situation.
To jump in real quick, maybe a part of it is true, but maybe a part of that is twisted, because it is very detailed. There's in my mind, it's very hard to believe that all those details are absolutely made up and wrong. Some of those have to be true. But of course, if another side of the story comes out, maybe we could put the puzzle together and say this chunk of the story is true. This chunk is twisted. But like I said, we only know one side, and I think that's all we're going to get, as you said.
Yeah, and they have to put a statement out or talk about it tonight. You can't just let this simmer for another day, 2 days, however long it may be. Like, you have to acknowledge this. And I'm surprised something didn't get put out immediately from Iowa once this broke. So wild, wild stuff. I just don't know how much to take into this, because sure, somebody could have 52,000 followers, but it could just be like a fan page or something, right?
Right.
So I don't know how reputable the source of the information is, but like you said, Jackson, it's a big distraction for the duel tonight, and Iowa's already up against it against Penn State, and now you've got all this on the back burner. Do the Hawks even have a chance tonight after all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards no, and I think it could go one of two ways. You could have some guys going out there extra fired up, almost wrestling out of spite for the brands if this story is true. You could also have guys not be as fired up because they don't want to, wrestle for that coaching staff. So it could go either way. I think I'm confident in, maybe like just 2 or 3 matches. I think Dean Peterson against Luke Lillidahl at 125. Peterson has beaten him before. So I think that's kind of like a toss-up. I think if they can, I don't know where they're going to start, weight class wise tonight. So if they can start at 125, I think that could be a good match to try to get Iowa going a little bit. I think 184 with Angelo Ferrari, he's, almost always favored in every match. So I think he can probably win that one. And I think Ben Keeter at heavyweight can get one there as well. So I'm pretty confident in, 2 or 3 matches there, but I'm mostly confident those are just going to be by decision. So that's only 9 points if those 3 guys win. And every other match, I feel like Iowa is at a disadvantage. So this could get ugly. I think, Patrick Kennedy versus Mitchell Messenbrink at 174 could be entertaining. I still think Messenbrink will win that one. I just, you've got to maintain that to be just a decision victory. You don't want him to get a bonus point victory there, because I feel like in those that 141, 157 range, you might get a few bonus point victories there, and it'll be an interesting duel tonight for sure. We'll see how they come out.
Jackson, Penn State's 197. Is that Josh Barr?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him from
that one's
Buchanan. Yeah. Buchanan took him down, I believe, in the championship.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
So
and I think, I don't think Dean wouldn't have wrestled tonight anyway if he was still on the team, because he wasn't healthy. So I think, either way, you're looking at the same situation. It's just that now you've got a whole distraction for the entire team. So it's definitely not an ideal situation for the Hawkeyes tonight.
Yeah, and Penn State is listed as a 24.5-point favorite tonight, which I did not know that was a thing in wrestling. I can't remember where I saw that at, but yeah, it's just hard to see Iowa having a fighter's chance in this one. But you are at Carver Hawkeye. Crowd's going to be energized, at least at the start. So you have to try and keep them in it by pulling off some upsets. So we'll see what happens there. That duel starts at 6 o'clock. I believe it's on Big Ten Network.
Yep.
If I'm correct.
Yep.
Cool. Moving on to the hardwood. We've got a lot of basketball talk. So we'll have to start on the women's side. Good win over Oregon last night. Oregon's numbers are really good. That's a good basketball team that's probably going to win a lot of games moving forward. But Iowa handled business.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You
want me to go
Chris.
first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, as expected, they're expected to win. I mean, Oregon is not ranked. They had still a good team, but a fair share of struggles in terms of Big Ten play. I believe they were 2-4 heading into last night, 2 or 3 or 2-4, but
2 and 3. Yep.
2 and 3. But Iowa's just a good team. Anytime they're at Carver, it's one of the best atmospheres, women's basketball wise, in the country. They had all this immense support behind them, and as you guys know that guard play is so insane. The two bigs, Stolke and Hayden, are just they're match made in heaven. But I saw something Chad Leistikow tweeted out after the game, and he said that Jan Jensen made a good point, and the reason why they were so good last night is because all the guards are finally healthy. Yeah, Chit-Chat Wright was out for a chunk of the season. Kylie Feuerbach was out for a chunk of the season. I believe last night was the first time those two played together. I'm not too sure. You can fact check me on that. But regardless, not a lot of times those two were on the court. Eddie Deal at 18. Yeah, just a great game all around. And then when you got Hayden and Stolke doing damage inside, those two are, Iowa with bigs is just, it's something else. So, great win for them. It was expected. A loss would definitely be upsetting, but they continue to roll. And, if they continue this push, they're going to be in the top 10 by next week or in 2 weeks. They just got to keep the foot rolling.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was awesome to see Addie Deal have a big night. 18 career high 18 points, 7 of 9, 4 for 4 from 3. Outstanding work from her. 18 points in 20 minutes, very efficient. It's good to see her try to start to get acclimated to Big Ten play as just a freshman. I think she can be a big piece off the bench for the Hawkeyes. Obviously, it's also great to see Stolke have a big night as well. You kind of been waiting on her to kind of turn it up a little bit, and she did. So, like you said, Chris, with those bigs down there that can run that, we saw that, the high-low running, quite a bit, and whether they're pulling up from the free throw line or feeding it down low, it seemed to be working, and then also just being efficient from three-point range as well. So, great win for Iowa, and, like you said, just keep the ball rolling.
Here's another thing,
and it was only a matter. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say it real quick. I mean, they got their hands full. The next game, Michigan State is off to their best start in program history, and they just took down Nebraska yesterday by 2 or 3 points. So I was just going to mention that they do got to keep the foot rolling, but tough matchup ahead. Arguably the hardest of the season so far.
Yeah, and it just felt like that game from Addie Deal was coming at some point. Everybody expected her to turn into the next Caitlin Clark when she stepped on campus. That wasn't going to happen, at least not right away, but she showcased everything that people were excited about coming in. She could shoot the three, she can distribute, good defender, and that was really exciting to see her perform that well, and especially in front of the home crowd. They've been waiting on it, and they got a show from her.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys think that how do you think Jan Jensen is handling the Addie Deal situation? Because I think a lot of us, I know we talked about, we expected her to starting the season, but she's been coming off the bench. I personally think it's a good thing. Let her watch as much as she's playing and take in the game. But how do you guys see that? Because obviously last night it showed to be working.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing because it allows her to get experience behind Chit Chat Wright. Chit Chat Wright's one of the best point guards in the country. I think I can confidently say that at this point. And to learn from somebody like her, you're in good hands. And I think Chit Chat's a junior, I want to say. So she'll have maybe even another year potentially to learn behind her. So I think it's perfectly fine for her to come off the bench because she doesn't have to feel as much pressure either. And she just gets to learn in that role. And it's tough to grow into becoming a college basketball player. It's not easy. And I think this is the type of game that is going to launch her forward into a superstar.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously when you have a freshman with this, much anticipation coming in, like, when you see her maybe, kind of struggle a little bit to start or not get acclimated right away, you start to worry a little bit. But that's why I think, having her come off the bench is huge, just getting that experience, getting visual reps, understanding, the why behind everything, like through practice and all that. And, getting your opportunity and taking advantage of it. And that's what she did, obviously, exactly split down the middle with 20 minutes on the floor, 20 minutes on the bench. I think that's big. And, I think she could be a big piece for Iowa going forward. They've got a really tough stretch of ranked opponents coming up. So I think she could be huge coming off the bench, especially if some of those guards get into foul trouble or anything.
Yeah, you got to
Chris,
think that depth. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, man. You're good.
I was going to say, I mean, like you said, the depth. I mean, if one guard falls out, you still got 3 or 4 more that could really come in and produce. So, and like you said, Chit Chat Wright is one of the best point guards in the country. You only got 3 players averaging over 10 points, but if you look at the roster as a whole, I mean, you got 6 players averaging at least 7, and you got 9 players averaging at least 5. So it's very well balanced with that team, and those are the teams that succeed is when you got multiple players playing well. They don't have to score the most points in the country. Most of the time, when you have a player scoring 20-plus points in college basketball, it's really outbalanced, and there's one guy doing everything. So you love to see that balance that they all got. You obviously got the 3 up top, but everyone else is doing their part.
Yeah, and Chris, you mentioned the difficult stretch they have coming up. They've got obviously Michigan State on Sunday. That's a really, really good basketball team coming to Carver. Really fun game, Sunday night matchup. Then you've got at number 12, Maryland. Terps are always a good team year in and year out. You've got number 14, Ohio State at Carver. You have to go to USC, and then you have to go at UCLA. So how's that for a 5-game stretch? My goodness.
That's as hard as it'll get for any women's basketball team in the country. Like you said, ranks number 15, 12, 14, unranked. Then you top it off with number 3. Then 3 games after that is number 24, Nebraska. And then at the bottom, number 8, Michigan, and number 25, Illinois. So that's just,
Sheesh.
man, they got their hands full. But if anyone's going to handle that pressure, it's Iowa. Jan Jensen got that squad rolling, as always.
Yeah, and Iowa needed that game last night too. That was a game where you kind of maybe could have overlooked Oregon, but that's still a really good basketball team, I think. And they really did a good job in avoiding that and passing that test with flying colors. So a lot of exciting games coming up on the women's side. On the men's side, a little shaky right now. They've lost 3 in a row, and they've got a tough one on Saturday at Indiana. They almost took down Purdue on Wednesday. I thought for a point there that they were going to pull away and maybe win that game, but they just can't figure out how to close a game right now.
Yeah, and I mean, anytime you go on the road, especially to a place like Mackey Arena, you're going to get, the home team is going to get the friendly whistle. And, I'm not usually the type of person to blame officials for a loss or anything like that. But to say that it played a part would be a lie. They didn't play a part would be a lie. And I think that's just another thing you have to overcome as a team. That's not an excuse. And I'm sure, Ben McCollum feels that way. He's a no excuse type of guy. But when you have those situations, like, you've got to just put that behind you and overcome it. And obviously, it might have cost Iowa, some points here and there, but I still feel like, being able to be in that close of a game with a top 5 team while also having the officials, kind of lean towards that Purdue side, you're showing you've got a lot of fight in you, and they're really close. And I think, you mentioned that Indiana game coming up. I feel like that's a must win. I think you've got to win that game, because right now it's not looking good. What are they, 0-3 or 0-4 in the quad 1?
0-4.
0-4, yeah. And you've only got a few more opportunities left, and you've got Purdue again, you've got Nebraska twice, at Wisconsin. Like, those are all tough. And then you've got Indiana as well. So, it's going to be a tough task for Iowa, but I think they can step up and start to get things rolling here. Coming up, being on a losing streak is not fun. If anybody can turn it around, I think it's Ben McCollum. I will say I did like to see Cale Combs shooting the ball more. I think I wish that he would shoot the ball more, because he can be very dangerous. Had 16 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 4 for 5 from 3. I feel like everyone was kind of, hitting pretty well from 3 as well. So, great to see him have that kind of showing, because, when you've got, someone like, when you've got guys that maybe aren't having a good night, Cooper Koch didn't shoot the ball much, only had 5 points. He needs someone to step up, and he's done that. And he's more of a distributor, trying to get the ball, into the paint or outside. He's not a better defensive player as well, and he's not usually looking to shoot, but I think he can be very dangerous in that aspect, and I'd like to see him continue to do that.
I will say for at least strictly for the loss to Purdue, I thought that Iowa actually played a decent game. I thought that the way they lost is not on them. I will not put the blame on them. I thought that's just Purdue made, I think, their last 9 of 10 shots. So that's just the number 5 team in the country just going to work. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country, one of the best offenses for a reason. And Braden Smith is the best point guard in the country. Unbiasedly saying, I mean, it's almost a fact. He's averaging nearly a double-double, and he showed that. But yeah, there were some calls that, you could look at and were questionable, but you can never put the blame on the officials. I mean, Iowa lost his game outright. But they're 5-5 in their last 10 after starting off 7-0. I think that, I don't know if this is what you were going to touch on, Brad, after, but at least just for the struggles, I think a lot of that has to do with, as I just said, with the women's side, now bringing it to the men's, the outbalanced scoring attack. Bennett Sturts is the only one averaging double figures. He's averaging what, 17.7. The next closest is 9.6. Tavion Banks. I think that's just too big of a gap. And a lot of these guys are streaky. Kale Combs is streaky. Tavion Banks had a good couple games. Cooper Koch had a good couple games. Fulgaris is streaky, but too much inconsistency with the other guys. We need at least 2 more guys to step up and give us a good 10 to 13 a game. In my opinion, if you do that, then a lot of other guys can create their own shot and make more shots. I think that a lot of these struggles where teams go on a run when Iowa doesn't score, that could be fixed. Because sometimes it's the defense, mainly in my eyes, is the offense sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
sorry, go ahead.
I think the sickness really played a factor into Iowa's losing streak as well, because I think they would have beat Minnesota and Illinois easily had they not been sick and sluggish. And last night really showed them at their full potential. And if they could play like that in Mackey, they could beat anybody on their schedule. But yeah, the officiating sucked. I'm not going to blame it, say that's why Iowa lost, but there were some awful calls that went against Iowa in crucial moments too that really helped Purdue pull away. But yeah, must win tomorrow in Indiana.
There were 2 calls real quick. Before you go, Jackson.
Yeah,
there were 2 calls that I thought were very questionable. One of them, I don't know if you guys see it on Twitter. I know you guys might have been watching the game live. One where Braden Smith dove for a loose ball, and Bennett Sturts almost turned his ankle nearly when on that
It was
call.
a full tackle.
Yeah, called him out
Yeah,
of
that
bounds.
was terrible.
Like,
Yeah, I put out a tweet. I'm like, yo, Braden Smith, join the football team. You might be competitive over there at Purdue. That was a great tackle, I'll say that. But that doesn't belong on the court. And then, he gets up celebrating, point the other way like he didn't just take out, Sturts' legs. That's called a foul anywhere else.
Yeah. But then the other one was, I believe it was Kale Combs shot a floater. It was short. Ball was going out of bounds, and the ref, it looked like he called it out of bounds on Cooper Koch when he clearly didn't touch it. I think they called it a loose ball, but even if so, that's a soft loose ball. Like, that's just them fighting for the ball and playing hard. That's not Cooper Koch taking his hip and shoving the guy out the way. He just put his hands up, and they called it a foul on him, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was awful. That was the worst call of the game, in my opinion. And I tweeted something at Chris Hassel because he responded, what the hell is this call? And I said, that's the Mackey Arena home whistle, Chris. And it was. Yep. I mean, I've never seen a call that bad this year. Like, that made no sense. And Iowa was just down 1 at the time. And obviously Purdue gets the ball and probably goes down and hits a shot to increase their lead. So that really – it's just little plays like that can make a difference sometimes. Iowa ultimately shot themselves in the foot too many times, but officials have to be better sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you mentioned the whistle. Like, look at the disparity in the free throws. Iowa had 10 free throw attempts. Purdue had 22. Like, obviously, Iowa was only 6 for 10, which needs to be better, and Purdue was 19 for 22, so they took advantage of it. But both teams had the exact same field goal percentage. They were both 27 of 51 from the floor. Iowa was slightly better in three-pointers. They also took a lot more. But, yeah, like, just seeing that free throw disparity and then just watching the game as well. Like, I wasn't able to watch it live. I was out for dinner with my family, so I wasn't able to watch it. But, I was able to kind of see some of those calls, posted later on Twitter, and I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you just can't have that. I'm really looking forward to when they come to Carver, later in the year. I got a student ticket to that game. I'll be there in the student section. So that should be a fun one, considering how close Iowa kept this one, despite the disparity in the free throws and the fouls.
I just remembered this real quick too. You guys remember in the first half they had a little scuffle. The very next Iowa offensive possession, they called Tavion Banks for an illegal screen.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't even
He barely tapped him.
Yeah.
He was trying to roll to the basket, and he just put his arm out, barely touched the defender, and then they called the foul.
Yeah. And then, that's the refs clearly trying to control the game.
And the double technical on that scrum with Fulgaris and whoever that was down there for Purdue, where they were, fighting for the ball after he wouldn't give it up.
And then Jacobson.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but yeah, he just had the ball down on the floor. He's just not letting it go. Fulgaris tries to get it. They kind of, have a little, scuffle there. Nothing really outlandish. And they just call double technical and wave it off and just call the foul that was on the floor. I mean, it's just I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
Especially after you review it. I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, but the bottom line is Iowa has to win tomorrow, because if you don't, yes, you've got a manageable stretch after that where you could probably win 6 out of your next 7 games, or maybe even all 7. But tomorrow's a quad 1 opportunity, and it's a road game as well. Not only does the committee look at quad 1 wins, they also look at your performance on the road. And if you're only going to win like 2 road games, that's not good for your seed line. So you need to be winning these types of games.
Yeah, I agree. They need to take advantage of this one tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they can get it. I think especially the city of Bloomington is focused on football, which is still weird to say, but I don't think that arena is going to be sold out, because the entire freaking town is going to be in Miami for the national championship game. So who knows? But yeah, it's going to be a tough game.
Are you going to that game, Brad?
No, I thought about it, but I decided to stay home, especially with NFL playoffs going, because my Bears are in the thick of it. We're in the Super Bowl.
Let's go. Go Bears.
Yeah, and I'm gonna cheer for my San Francisco 49ers tomorrow night.
That's insane to say. I'm stuck in between two of the same people here. So yeah, Bears Seahawks championship would be fun though.
That would be a lot of fun. I'd rather have the championship in Chicago though, if possible. So
you'd rather just play it. You'd rather just play it, honestly. I mean, if you beat the Rams,
I'll say this, bro. I'm on your side with Seattle because I can't root for Brock Purdy.
I want the Bears to win. Why are you always against me, Brad? What are we doing here?
I'm not always against you.
You said you're rooting for the 49ers.
Brad, you can't forget about Brock Purdy. You can't forget about Brock Purdy. Not only did he beat us, but he hit the Dougie like 3 times. That's just offensive.
And he went to Iowa State. Come on.
And he made me lose out on $280 from my fantasy league, throwing that touchdown to CMC late. I'm upset about him with that, so can't root for him.
Hey, be upset with the coach for not challenging that play before, because that was a touchdown before the CMC
clear
one.
Touchdown. And the thing, it didn't make sense because the Niners rushed into the next play. How did that even make sense? I was so mad, bro. I was upset, and I'm still upset. Brock Purdy is enemy number 1 on my list. Go Seattle.
Yeah.
Should be a fun weekend of sports. Before we go, do you guys have any predictions for the Iowa-Indiana game tomorrow?
I think Iowa wins it. I feel like it'll be close. It's probably going to be similar to the last couple games, kind of that low 70s to high 60s range. I think Iowa plays good enough defense to where they can keep them there. Obviously tough on the road, but I think Iowa understands that they absolutely have to win this game, and they're gonna come out ready to go. And they got out to a better start on Wednesday than they had in the previous 2 games. So I think they'll get off to a good start again.
I do feel like sometimes, and this is just them being inexperienced at the D1 level. A lot of them are, besides Brendan Hausen, for whatever reason, is not really seeing too much time. But I think a lot of that road struggles is just inexperience being in arenas that big. I do think they get shaken up. Like, Brad, we were there against Michigan State. They were clearly shaken up, and they've been better as of late. But even against Purdue, Iowa State, they have times when the stadium gets real loud. Like, in Madden, they get the stadium pulse. They start to get a little nervous. So I think, like you said, Bloomington, that arena will definitely not be filled because everyone's going to have football jerseys on and not basketball. So, maybe that'll play to their advantage. And as they get healthy, and you got to picture the way Ben McCollum's been having them practice. He's livid and telling them, we're not losing the 4th. Yeah. I don't know how accurate this is. This is a random search up after the game against Purdue. The last time Ben McCollum lost 3 in a row was in 2013. Don't know how accurate that is. But if that is accurate, that's 12 years since the last time this has happened. So you got to imagine that his head can't be a 4th because it's already the world is almost ending in its coaching world cycle.
Yeah, I believe that stat though, because those Northwest Missouri State teams lost maybe 2 games a year at their peak. So I believe that's true. So do you think Iowa's winning the game then, Chris?
Yes. They have to. They must and they have to. So I'm going to assume yes. Plus, they are one of the top 25 teams in the country when they're playing right and they put a game together. So definitely should, especially when Bennett Sturts is rolling from the tip off to the when there's triple zeros on the clock. He just can't have stretches of inconsistency because we can't afford it. We don't got too many consistent offensive weapons.
Yeah, I think Iowa gets it done too. I think they match up well with this Indiana team. Indiana's had their fair share of struggles all year. I think they shoot the 3 a lot, which to me favors Iowa because of their length inside. Obviously, Indiana's probably going to outmatch Iowa there. So if you can make Indiana shoot a lot of outside shots, then you're going to have a chance to win the game. So I think Iowa finds a way to squeak it out, and they head into a stretch after this where they can feel really good about themselves and start to bank some wins before Purdue comes to town on February 5th, I believe.
Yep. No, yeah. Purdue is February 14th.
Or 14th, so Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Oh, man. Oh, and this is at Carver?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm postponing my plans with my girlfriend. We got to put those on the side. I'll talk about it a day early.
You just gonna bring her to press row then? What are you gonna do?
I'll just have her sit there.
Hey, babe, here's a steak dinner out of my backpack for you. You can eat while we're watching.
Hey, believe it or not, she do got some ball now. She understands the basics of the game. She just doesn't know players and how it rolls. So I had to teach her some of that, but she knows ball a little bit. She can speak. She speaks ball.
She speaks ball.
I will say before we go, we did have some news break during the show. Iowa has landed a commitment from popular North Dakota defensive line transfer Emmanuel Alagbaju, I think is how you say his last name. He was previously committed to UConn out of the portal and then flipped to Iowa. So he had 9 tackles in 10 games with 2.5 sacks. So nice depth piece there, kind of right at the end of the portal here.
Yeah, looks like I have to do more work.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Good for them. Portal combat coming.
Yep.
That's right. Portal combat. Any predictions for the women's game on Sunday? Iowa, Michigan State.
Ooh.
Where's it at?
Iowa. It's at home. With it being at home, I think Iowa wins. I think that environment will be lively. Obviously, it is on a Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Obviously, I think it'll still be a packed crowd. Sunday night should be lively. I think the roof's going to come off Carver, so I think they get the win there.
That's going to be tough for them. They got Michigan State has 6 players averaging at least 9. That's very tough. Yeah, 3 players averaging at least 13. Balanced scoring attack. I mean, same thing as Iowa. Very balanced scoring attack. So I think we're going to have to see one of those unsung heroes. One of the people maybe averaging 5 to 9 points on Iowa's roster. Don't want to name them all right now, but yeah, I think it's going to be one of those guys. Someone got to step up the same way Eddie Deal did against Oregon last night. Someone's got to step up because, yeah, that's going to be a challenge. Iowa's defense is going to play a big part. Chit-Chat Wright is going to play a big part, I believe.
Yeah, I've got the Hawkeyes too. I think the home crowd is just too much of an impact for Michigan State, and Iowa's good enough. They'll protect home court. So
I will say, Brad, you remember how Michigan State was at Arena. I remember watching Michigan State's game last night, and they didn't even have people behind their bench. It wasn't a lot of people.
Really?
You remember that thing was filled for the men's, so you can imagine them playing. So if they're playing at their home arena when there's not a lot of fans, and they come to a sold-out arena in Carver, and I don't know if it's going to be a gold out, a blackout, or however that's going to go to stripes, you can imagine same way Iowa men's does, maybe they'll get shaken a little bit.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Should be a fun weekend of sports. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you hopefully next week.
Go Seahawks.